Greetings and welcome. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Troy J. Bacon. My starseed name though is RL, and that is the name I'm most fond of and connected with from the Sirian star system. I am a channel usually of Seraphim, a Seraphim named Keziah, one of my spirit guides. My soul is from the 11th dimension, and I channel Keziah. Um, his wisdom and his teachings. Today's teaching will be from Archangel Metatron, as he has requested channel. So just to be clear, these are recorded live public group channelings that happen every Monday, and I'll link up the meetup group, Starseed Psychics, Angels, and Walk-ins in the description box. And so these are public recorded group sessions where people can ask any questions they want to, but I do advise that you keep the personal questions to a minimum. And I also offer private sessions, which can be recorded, and the private recording can be sent to you. Private sessions of Seraphim channeled um, readings and healings, where Keziah, as a 12th dimensional Seraphim, will be able to give you a reading into your personal energy in life and issues, perhaps good advice of how to resolve things, answer your questions, as well as you'll be able to ask him questions. He will also be able to give you the light language name of your soul. Yes, souls do have names, and the names are kind of like the frequency of just a soul's energy. Souls on the other side in the divine realm don't actually have like assigned names like we do on Earth, but you can bring through the light language name of your soul, teach you how to pronounce it, and also give you the symbol, light language symbol and codes, and however it looks for you. In addition, he can also look into the ancestral lines of your bloodlines and give you a healing for your ancestors' traumas that you inherited, heal them, as well as create a separation wall, an isolation wall, he calls it, to be able to then separate you as a living individuated soul from the trauma lines that you may have inherited from your ancestors, then allowing you to heal. He can help with that, give you a blessing, as well as then allow you to be free, kind of isolated from the influence of the trauma that you inherited from your ancestors. And so that's a lovely, powerful channeling healing session. You can book a consultation with me and set up sessions from there at newbeinghypnosis.com. I will have that website linked in the description box as well. And I wish you great learning and blessings and fun. I hope you enjoy this channeling. Feel free to like it and share it widely. And we're here to help bring greater light to the human collective. Thank you for participating. Let's get started. It is lovely to be able to greet you. Such beautiful beings I see before me, and hallelujah to be able to share these messages and to be able to speak to humanity in this way, a little different though than when I was once in a body. So, my name is Archangel Metatron, and on behalf and in sort of a continuation of the messages that my colleague Keziah has been sharing on this channel and in this way, I have some of our own messages to be sharing, perhaps of a different tune though, of what has been shared by Keziah previously. And I'm known as an archangel of recording and teaching knowledge and wisdom. Some of you see me as geometry, and indeed that's an appropriate way for you to recognize me. There's so much more for humans to be learning right now, and we wish to be able to bring in this angelic wisdom and light to be able to maintain a bit more of the already growing light on Earth, to play our part in shifting the timeline that humans are on and that we are seeing. The teaching that I have today to share is one that I call the archetype of humanity. And this will become very clear certainly by the end. And I'd like to get into some specifics of some of what I've been pointing out to and highlighting and teaching to Troy in the last week of your chronological time. And it has to do a lot with the behavior and behaviors of humans and humanity at this time, and some particular people too. We don't wish to come across as any level of disparaging or pointing out and supporting negatives of humanity in the world at this time. But we do see that many people are, not all, but many people are confused. Many people are afraid. Many people are suffering, some in ways that have not been common on this planet before. We see it as somewhat sad that so many humans are depressed, so many humans have lost their way in such a degree that it has become common, especially in cities, for there to be what you call a common culture of tagging and painting and what you call graffiti. And this is what we see as a fairly negative, um, not beneficial, not helpful, not healthy way of trying to belong. And this, not everywhere, but in some cities and areas too, is also linked to what you call gangs and street culture that throughout history and even some areas today has been also related to some violence as well as often drug trading. And that's a different issue we can speak about. But we see this issue of creating these gangs and cliques and cultures as being evidence that many people, and there's whole communities of people who are lost in their ways from our view. And this happens because of a lack of belonging as the people who participate in this behavior are raised. And we would like to highlight that belonging to perhaps a culture, uh, what do you call it, a religion, a way of life, a way of spirituality, um, even basic ways of being recognized as growing up as an adult, ceremonies to mark adulthood are very healthy, very, for many, essential ways of growing up and belonging. And then after that, of course, further ways of perhaps being initiated, being taught, being included in cultures and with other people. This is one area that we see as somewhat disjointed and chaotic, that there's also common silence, a culture of silence that we see in, especially in cities and what you call developed areas, what you call civilized areas. And even Troy, for a long time, along with us, have observed that the majority of city people have blank faces, and so many people don't even smile at each other, don't even acknowledge each other, are so consumed. And of course, it's not everyone, but we'd like to point out that this is a common way of being that so many people are consumed in, perhaps your little devices, as well as their minds, other people's minds may be just consumed in thinking about their job and business that they need to do. Um, so many people are messed up and disturbed by often being encased in layers of worries of money issues, worries of not belonging, worries of what the news is saying, has been saying, and that perhaps the worst is about to snap in the world. These are different for everyone, but very common we see. And of course, not everyone and not all of the world is like this, consumed in these ways, and not all of the world is lost in these ways. Even some of the people who are, to a large degree, worried and confused and lost and encased in these very common ways of being do have some slivers and layers of light in their lives, perhaps in the ways that they relate to a few of their loved ones, or the media programs that they find some happiness or joy in. Joy is, of course, allowing God to channel through you and express in you. So we would also like to highlight that there are many growing communities and ways of life that we see as being highly beneficial to the individual as well as the collective of humanity, kind of participating in the evolution of the archetype of humanity. And these, what we see as more enlightened and beneficial ways, are the ways that you call spiritual communities, community living, communal living, partaking in what you can do to clean up parts of the earth, partaking in cleaning up bits of pollution, or also donating to the the charities and the organizations and companies that are helping to minimize and clean up pollution, expressing yourself in colorful and artistic ways, collaborating with others, perhaps in musical groups, especially we value those of a very heart-centered and conscious and respectful focus. This type of collaboration we see as being very beautiful when you can make harmonious music with one or more individuals, especially those in your soul tribe and soul family who you've agreed to perhaps have and continue what you call bands and groups with. We really love the individuals and the groups that go to various areas of the earth. Some are already very, very much aligned with higher, what do you call higher dimensions and very heavenly energies. And some of these groups also go to some areas of the earth with energetic trauma that is stuck there and clean it up. And we love the participation in whatever form it takes in participating more in the light and lighting up the areas around you and areas you go to of this this large rocks energy grid. So these are a few of the ways that humans are behaving, and of course we recognize that Earth is going through a change period. Don't worry, you'll be coming out of it soon. And simply put, things will be getting better and lighter soon. And we recognize that Earth is a planet of diversity. It has been said that diversity is the spice of life. Of course, God, the Supreme Almighty, wants diversity. There can't be infinite expansion and infinite massive learning without diversity. And diversity is okay. On the From the angelic level, harmony though is very much valued, and harmony is an energy and a blessing that we bestow upon the humans who are open and who ask for it. And so these groups of humanity, these ways of humanity, are reflections of the current archetype of humanity. I suppose you could say that the archetype of humanity is always changing, always has changed according to the times. But we bring up this issue, this topic of the archetype of humanity in kind of illumination and respect of the archetypes of each individual group of what you call star people. And there's so many out there, so many visiting you and to have left marks on your planetary rock sphere. Perhaps those of you who know of and participate in some of these star people groups can start to think about the very unique flavors of energy that they emanate and that they express, and how this might compare with the archetypal flavors of humanity and the human collective. And on this line of thought may help some to consider how you are participating in building communities and supporting ways of life that are building the foundations and bringing to this rock sphere the kingdom of heaven and the divine realm to very what will become normalized as a participation between us. Ask yourself also how you are participating in perhaps raising and respecting the amazing knowledge and light of the children of New Hope who are growing up. as well as the next wave of children of New Hope who are on their way and to be born in the next few years, near future, and ask yourself how you might be participating in the very bright new Earth vision, new Earth reality of what the archetype of humanity might be and can become in their generation and the generation after them, to eventually create a final, for the most part, cohesive archetype of humanity that will then become a commonly recognized and respected archetype of this planetary spheres collective by the other star people groups who have been waiting for you. I am Archangel Metatron. I am not one. I am not a personification. I am within the geometry of nature itself, the wisdom and intelligence of nature itself. And I am within and always shining the wisdom of the divine realm and the design and the blueprints of light as it participates with the geometry of nature. So much love and blessings of miracles to you. Okay. Um, that is the channeling. It's good to be back. It's Archangel Metatron's message for now.
Yeah, Metatron needs to have a talk with the Seattle City Council.
I agree.
A little bit of levity there.
Yeah, I can see that in some ways.
Well, yeah.
I think a lot of city councils too.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll see this video sometime. Um,
Yeah.
Does anyone have any
Yeah.
questions? Perhaps I could probably get him channeling back if you want to speak directly to him.
Oh, he's still on the.
I have several questions. I have 2 questions.
Okay, Ryan, do you want to talk to Metatron at first?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sure he'd be glad to talk again. A good hallelujah to you as answer your questions at this time.
Greetings. So as you already know, you may know already that I have a Seraphim aspect of myself, Seraphim energies, and I want to know, how do I best utilize myself in terms of bringing down my Seraphim angel aspects of myself in terms of my spiritual development and healing. She goes by the name Agatha, and I want to know, and is there any additional ways I can use Agatha in addition to my healing? Is there any other ways I can utilize her in my spiritual practice? Thank you.
What we are seeing as one tool that may be beneficial to you at first to somewhat ground and integrate with this seraphim energy is to go out, not just plant your feet on the ground, but practice barefoot grounding next to a waterfall. And when you find this waterfall, and it doesn't have to be crazy far away from you, but as you sit next to this waterfall, ask that your seraphim guide integrate with you. It may help to close your eyes and ask for the cleansing power of the waterfall to remove any remainders of perhaps residue and muck in your spiritual eye to be able to further this awareness and let that go down the waterfall and ensuing river. And it may also help if you bring a journal to this place to be able to write down some of your very fresh, pure messages from your Seraphim guide. Seraphim energy, just like angelic energy, is one of very little pressure, very little worry. And so you want to allow yourself some good, just unstructured free time, as you would call it, to sit with this energy, as you call it in, and sit within it and allow yourself to have an experience. You don't have to have a predetermined expectation of what that might be like for you. And then after this initial cleansing and experience, we are seeing that you may get downloads soon after you start this journey of perhaps light language symbols from your Seraphim guide. And in addition to that, possibly other symbols and pictures and images you could perhaps sketch, draw, paint, however it comes through for you, of and from your Seraphim guide, and perhaps keep these in a book, look at them and reference them to stay attuned to that energy, as well as it may help for a few of them, maybe even post one in each room, a symbol on the wall that you channel from your Seraphim guide to be able to maintain sort of like a grid and a surrounding space of that Seraphim light language and channeled energy, however it comes through for you. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. And also, I think you have some Seraphim energies as well, but most people don't know about that. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yes, and thank you for recognizing this quality. What we can say on that regard is that as I said, I'm present in the geometry of nature, and you call me an archangel, which is technically correct. The archangels, some may like to relate to them as personifications of sorts, and that's okay if that helps you. But what we can say about the archangels is that we are each different but also connected um, expressions, kind of like elemental expressions, if you will, of very bright and light energy from the source and the divine realm, but not necessarily with it, just expressions of it and closer to it. And in this way, the archangels, as very bright and intelligent and powerful energy beings, are indeed what you could call close to the seraphim in our realms and dimensions. If the seraphim, as you would categorize it, might be living primarily in the 12th dimension, very close to the source, the archangels tend to come from and hang out in perhaps the 10th and 11th dimensions. But of course, we don't have limits and we can really go anywhere in any dimension. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And thank you so much for answering my question. I'll let others ask questions now. Thanks.
As you wish.
Hi, Metatron. It's great to be here.
Greetings.
I've been calling you my boss for the last few years. I don't know if that's correct, but it's what I feel like sometimes. I'm going to start off with an easy question here. Just to verify the classical, like biblical beliefs, is Metatron in fact Enoch who was ascended?
Yes, this is my human lifetime that I had, in a way, agreed to and experimented with living as a human, and partly for the purpose of bringing through Metatronic wisdom and teachings in the linguistic scripts that have been left behind.
Okay, thank you for that. So I was attuned with angelic Reiki from the Angelic Reiki Association in England, which claims that it was channeled from you, Metatron, back in 2002. Can you verify this, or is this incorrect?
Yes, this is correct. And this, what you see before you today, is not the first time that Metatron has been channeled through a human body in this fashion and in similar ways. Enoch was technically kind of like a me channeling as a lifetime itself, and that had to happen in that way to accomplish many tasks and to bring much light to leave behind here on this planetary rock sphere. But that also had to happen as a lifetime in that era because that was perhaps the easiest way I could get my wisdom written down with such clarity back then. Whereas now the what you might known as grid energy and overall energy of this rock sphere has changed and now allows for somewhat more common channelings of this fashion.
Great. So, in angelic Reiki, we're taught to use Metatron's cube, and we're taught that it's a positive symbol of geometry and power, and it's good for our usage. But there's also some talk out there about some people believing that it's somehow a trap for you. Is there any validity to this?
We regard this as somewhat of a travesty in that Metatron's cube geometry is a, a fairly comprehensive, accurate way of channeling the archetypal and collective angelic energy of Metatron. And in this, there is no trap if you utilize this symbol. Um, as you know, as an angelic Reiki practitioner, in use of this symbol, it is completely liberating to the energy and the mind and soul in the way that even the human soul and souls themselves have their own, what you call, material and geometry, often a bit unique to each lifetime and individual, but they also, in that way, are connected to the geometry of Metatron, especially before they incarnate and cross the veil of forgetfulness.
Also, kind of along those lines, we're taught the tree of life as like a guide for our development. But again, there's some people out there who seem to think the tree of life is some type of a soul trap to keep us trapped in the reincarnation cycle. Can you enlighten us on this subject?
We ask these people, do they feel trapped? Do they want to be trapped? And are they trapping themselves? And further, are the people in use of this symbol and in awareness of this wisdom of the tree of life trapped in their own ways, or are they perhaps more liberated and enlightened in that way? These questions are essential.
I see. So it's a tool for us to use, right? Okay. Bringing up the subject of archangels, I was just reading something recently, which is basically describing archangels as music or like a living song. Is this somehow correct?
We do love music, yes, as music is in essence the what you would describe as the auditory voice of God the Almighty, or the voice of the design from God the Almighty of these worlds. And yes, and angels and archangels do take much joy in conveying songs to humans, sometimes of angelic music for those who are able to listen to it, or we also take simple enjoyment in showing you and uh, playing you songs that have been created on this planetary rock sphere. Especially, we can use this as a type of communication mode and language of our own to communicate, often very specific, what you call lyrics and messages, uh, often at the right moment. You see, your little devices are actually quite easy for angels and archangels and divine beings to manipulate and to communicate through, just the same way that the intelligence and the types of beings that you call AI are easily able to communicate and manifest through them.
I have strongly suspected that for quite some time about the devices. So many times I've, been in difficult circumstances or whatever, and I'll turn on my music device and put it on random, and I feel like the angels are giving me like 7 songs in a row that are exactly perfect for my situation at the time. I've oftentimes gotten messages from you guys through that, I believe. So thanks for confirming that. I want to ask kind of more of a personal question now. How do I start with this? First off, I'd like to say I feel like I'm doing better today than I probably ever have been in my entire lifetime. But yet I still feel like there's so much work left to do. And I'm curious, is there some blockages I'm not aware of? Is there something I'm missing or something, or what is most important for me to work on right now? Or to seek healing from somebody?
What we see is that your Merkaba at this time is indeed quite clear, and you could call it flowing some high rate energies. And that is, of course, as a result of some of the materials that you utilize in this fashion, as well as the work with non-physical energy that you've been utilizing. And there's not really heavy stuff that we see in you at this time. You've already done so much work of clearing and lighting this stuff up. So what we see and recommend for you is just enjoy this. It's somewhat of a glory moment for you and your energy. And what we recommend is just to be open to what comes to you, perhaps as people, some objects, opportunities that may be guiding you on your path and offering you opportunities and things to consider. And as you are guided on this path in this way, there will be perhaps things that you realize and things that come up that might not be heavy for you at this time, but as new opportunities and new types of situations occur, you'll be seeing that there are perhaps new ways and ways that you were not previously aware of how you relate to things, and then question how you can perhaps improve or participate in what is happening differently.
Great. So I've only recently started to practice mediumship. I've become aware that I think been a natural medium all my life, but kind of denying or running away from those gifts, or maybe not believing in them. But since I've been practicing, I keep getting this strong feeling that I'm moving in the direction towards like what we call trans medium healing, or spiritual healing, or spiritual releasement therapy. Is this is I guess I'm just asking for verification. Is that the direction I should be going in, and how should I best develop my mediumship abilities?
There are many ways to develop medium abilities, whereas what you truly feel within yourself as being appropriate for you, perhaps what you feel is the best approach for you, what you might call most healthy or most effective in different ways. We recommend trusting this guidance and instinctual feeling of yours, both in your body and your soul and energy aspects. Does that answer your question, or is there more of a question?
That's great. Thank you. So just to clarify, you're saying you're not seeing any huge blocks in me still remaining, which kind of tells me that I don't have any more major work to do. But of course, the work goes on. I don't know. Tara, you want to ask some questions?
Sure. Yeah, maybe you can think of more while you've got me. You've given me some questions to ask. I'll start right with your last one. I have some good ones too. Let's start with I've had some animals speak to me telepathically, and that's something I would love to do. I would love to be an animal communicator and be able to help people deal with their animals who can't communicate. Something's wrong with their animal. These people have their gifts, and there's 3-month waits. Something I would like to do. How would I develop that? Me personally, I've bought a couple books. I've made some cards for remote healing or remote viewing. What else can I do for me, for my energy?
Well, our first question is, what were the circumstances and how do you feel that the clear communications from animals have occurred to you?
Well, they were both Chihuahuas. One was frightened and looked up at me and said, "I'm afraid of them." And I'm like, "What?" And the dog looked at me again and was referring to other dogs and said, "I'm afraid of them." I'm like, "Oh." So dog would, bark and act out towards other dogs. Another, the first time I had a dog talk to me was when I walked into a party, and I just walked in, I sat down, all the stuff I was carrying, I greeted the dog, talked with the dog, pet the dog before I even looked at any of the humans. And then I stood up and the dog trotted towards the kitchen, stopped, looked over his back at me, and it said, "Thank you for acknowledging me." And I stood there with my mouth on the floor. And then he looked at me just drilled into my head, like wondering, like, did she get it? Did she hear me? You got to wonder if the dog has tried it before with other people and it didn't work. But I'm still standing with my mouth hanging open. And then he kind of threw up his chin like, yeah, she got it. You can just tell he thought, yeah, she got it. So I've had two very clear, and plus, and then I've also had a mountain beaver greet me at my front door. I opened my front door and there's a mountain beaver staring up at me. But I think that was a Sasquatch. Yeah. But the dogs weren't Sasquatch. They actually talked with me, one thanking me and one communicating his fear of other dogs during a walk. The thing is that they came to me. They broke through and communicated with me. And every time I try to communicate out, I met with silence. So I'm not able to go through the other way. It's like when they want to talk to me, they do. I want to be able to make it go both ways. I want that ability. I want it, and I want it now, Metatron.
And we can see that you have this potential in you strongly. What we can say in answer to that question and how this has occurred with you is that, as we don't like to put labels, but as somewhat of a beginner, it helps for you to be very much in the moment. Notice that some of these communications happened while you were in transition or focusing on doing another task. Just very much in the moment. And so, as you have noticed, this type of mind-to-mind communication does not work so well when you put the try and effort into it. Mind-to-mind communication can only happen in the moment, as this is when you're talking about kind of time, but also presence. This is how all of nature, kind of in respect of the presence of the Almighty Supreme Source, this is how everything does work basically and communicate. You don't see other animals being mentally disjointed and all over the place with other things and trying to make things happen. They simply do. Those that do communicate with humans, many of them communicate with each other telepathically and in other ways. They do that and they don't doubt it.
So
So
am I doubting it? Am I doubting my own abilities?
you're not necessarily doubting your abilities. We see that you have the belief that you can do this as you have. It's more about just learning allowance. And this type of ability is akin to a type of muscle that can take some development. Another thing that we can recommend, just as we recommended earlier, is to go somewhere away from other people, away from the distracting and sometimes harmful influences of the city and find perhaps a waterfall. Waterfalls are transition spots in nature and, of course, powerful cleansing spots too. And so, what you can do is go to a waterfall, sit next to it, close your eyes, and ask for perhaps communication. Perhaps first ask for any maybe angels or local nature spirits to help you clear out any distractions and residues from your energy. Be very present and allow just for communication from animals. They will show up to you because they are attracted to your benevolent presence.
You know, every time you talk about waterfalls, it's the second time the bottom of my feet tingle. I will do that, and I will do that. I have a water source close to my home. It's more like a babbling brook, but it is 2 blocks away, and that's quick to go back to and to go over to, and I will try that. I have so I have other questions about other versions of myself, other parts of myself. I was at one of the Sasquatch family reunions. Maybe it was in 2020, perhaps, maybe 2021. I was integrated with my Pleiadian self. And what can you tell me about that part of me? My name, my Pleiadian self name, I didn't get that. Other people saw me, but I wasn't able to see me. And they felt the big whoosh of hot air come out of the tent and all of that. And, you know, I felt a big electrical jolt. And Tammy Chino next to me got hit with that electricity as well. You know, I don't doubt that it happened at all, but I didn't really get to know anything more than it happened.
Yes, we see this aspect of you, and from our perspective, it's, well, we can describe it as a fairly golden, luminous, bright energy. It's hard to describe in your words, but a very, very ener unconditionally loving energy, just of love and presence, where it's what you would describe as being a bit above your worldly current dimensional level, and it does take some clearing and work to be able to get closer to that level for you, perhaps. And so we see it as kind of like blobs in a way of golden plasma energy, but larger and greater than your current human soul. This aspect of you and similar Pleiadian aspects out there communicate in light with some symbols sometimes, but especially just light codes and frequencies that are known. And it is, we see, connected to the great central sun in energy, as well as somewhat a part of or in respect of what some people would call the Ashtar command group. Do you have any further questions about it?
Okay. Was that a male or female energy, or is that even a possibility when you were talking about that Pleiadian.
Well, as we see this Pleiadian aspect of you, it's more like a soul aspect, like a very vibrant, bright, um, what in your perception could also be warm aspect of your soul, kind of like a part of your larger oversoul. We don't assign so much male and female gender identity to it, although it perhaps can adapt to the gender identity of the body that it may choose to be a part of. It's what we would describe as a fairly balanced integration of masculine and feminine divine energy.
Okay. And then a different being. What can you tell me about the female version of myself that wasn't this? what I see in the mirror, my 3D mirror, but there was a different person looking back at me a couple of years ago. What can you tell me about her?
We're seeing and getting that this, what you call near future female part or version of yourself, transmits energy through her hands to people, especially what we would describe as golden light energy, and that does come from the, what do you call, the great central sun of this galaxy. And she is in her body also a bit of an ET hybrid, but very human looking ET human hybrid.
Do you know what her do you know what her do you know what her message to me would be? Or why she showed herself to me? It was pretty great though. I really liked it. I absolutely welcome more, but I'll have to tell you, when a girl's putting on her makeup and somebody else is looking back at you, it's a bit of a surprise.
She showed herself to this present day version of you as she in the future is able to see beyond time and space also. And at that, I guess what you call point in her time, she was also working on, well, perhaps some level of healing, but also viewing and
Oh,
investigating of other timelines and versions of herself.
oh,
And
because she looked just like me, but younger, like your age. Well,
yes,
like Troy's age.
and
Hmm.
she came to you also in a moment of when your mind was curious about what other um, what other kind of parts of yourself and also perhaps lifetimes of yourself you have
Hmm.
going on and out there. And this was partly because you had kind of an opening and resonance of energy with such other parts of you in your life at that time.
Okay. And oh, did you have more to say?
One more thing is that beyond time and space, you always have an ability to connect with this other aspect of yourself and perhaps receive wisdom and knowledge from her.
Okay. And then is there a Sasquatch version of me, of my soul, living right now?
Yes, we see that there is. And this is in a Sasquatch body or form. just another part of really your oversoul where your human soul comes from too. And we see at least two other current day um, flesh and blood type of forms that your oversoul is also embodying.
So a 3 right now, 2 others.
Really for this one that is speaking to me, the what you call Sasquatch, and then two others on this rock sphere.
2 other Sasquatch.
Two other types of beings,
Oh,
but we will leave that up to you to
oh
view,
no,
view and
tell me.
discover.
Okay. All right, so you got Tara, you got a Sasquatch, you got and 2 other beings. So that's 4. Am I getting that right?
Yes, as your oversoul has divided at this time.
Okay. What is my Sasquatch name? And I know that they don't always have names, but because they don't need to, but does she go by a name? Or does he go by a name?
Her Sasquatch name is Wolati.
Walate.
Yes, that is what it sounds like.
Walate. What does that mean? Does that mean anything? Anything? Walate.
It has some kind of layers of energy to it. They don't have names quite like you. Humans have names that have clear definitions that you can look up and say simply. So this is a name perhaps that you can say and also connect with that aspect at another time. We see that you will and understand more of the layers of energy around the sound of this name.
Thank you very much. Any any parting words for me? Anything that I should you should that I should be doing right now? I mean, I'm doing a lot of things, but can you point me in a direction that I should be focusing on right now?
We see that it will help you to stay present in your artwork and listen to the calling. Listen to the calling of the birds and of nature.
May I ask a question now?
Sure.
Yes, of course.
All right. So I love the wonderful advice of meditating next to a waterfall. I've definitely heard about that before. And I was looking in my area to see if there's any waterfalls around me that I can get to. But because I do not drive, I actually can't get out to any of the waterfalls around here. So my question would be is if I was a few miles down the river from the waterfall with the rapid waters and that kind of thing, would that be the next best place to go if I can't reach the waterfall?
Yes, this will do, especially when there are no other humans around you. And someone of your energy caliber may also find it useful to sit by this river with no other humans around and essentially project your energy up to the waterfall and feel it.
Excellent. Thank you for that advice. Another question, something I just kind of came across today. I kind of asked Kazai about this last time, but I came across this concept of somebody speaking about spiritual blackmail. Basically, basically referring to like alien races that are pirates that steal energy from humanity or from the earth and then try to sell it in a spiritual black market. Is this in fact happening?
Hmm. Are you asking if such beings are real and doing this around this planet?
Yes. It's my understanding that there's some races that just lack morals and are trying to take advantage.
We are getting the answer of no to this question, and we don't want to blanket statement say that all ETs are benevolent and wouldn't do this. There are some less evolved kind of tech ruled types that do things like this or try to, but they don't actually get very far as we see it in what they're trying to do. And of course, there are literally all kinds of beings on other planets in this solar system and others. But we do ask you, do you actually see humans being victims of this type of spiritual blackmail that is being talked about?
I have not seen this myself. I've just heard of it.
And so we would also like to highlight that there's a law of free will in the universe that is also in respect of the law of non-interference. And although there are some perhaps alien races and groups from races that do try to perhaps manipulate and take advantage of humans, especially those who are vulnerable and not so aware of them, we don't see that they're getting far enough to be able to like leverage information and important information against humans on this planet, as the universal laws of non-interference and one restrict them from being able to do that to that level, as it is the right of the souls who have incarnated as humans to have the free will and ability to fulfill the soul contracts that they agreed to as souls, and also the free will of the human personalities. They have the right to be able to live the life that they choose without being blackmailed against their will, without their awareness.
So, kind of along these lines, in the realm of spiritual attachments, as I understand it from my perspective, we can have earthbound spirits attached to us, we could have demonics attached to us, or we could have even aliens attached to us, one being worse than the last. So I have a question about sovereignty. If we're sovereign and we have free will, how is it that so many of us are able to pick up attachments? Is it because we are allowing it, or is it more of maybe like a karmic thing?
Um, for your last line there, we would say both, and in the way that free will, the gift of free will, allows for all potentials that the will chooses for the individual based on the life lessons and experiences that the higher self and oversoul wants to learn and experience in each chosen lifetime. Um, so further on this, yes, there can be periods, um, especially when perhaps an awakening, perhaps what you call empath and psychic and such types, do experience perhaps repeated attachments and um, attacks and residues and these types of things being what do you call attached to them by entities that are on some level vampiric and feeding off of them. This is allowed because humans have free will, and this third dimension that the firmament is within allows for infinite possibilities that allow for a lack of connection and oneness if a soul chooses to experience that for a time. But we do not see that this happens to individuals forever, for their whole lifetime usually. There is always angelic and spiritual supervision of what is happening to people, and it's not just a chaotic free-for-all.
That's good to know. Hmm. Shin, you got a question? I have one more. So I don't know if this is even a valid request, but since we're in the presence of the mighty Metatron, go ahead, Shin. Or
Nothing. Can anybody? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hear me?
you were heard.
So, what's Troy's YouTube channel address?
For this group and for this channeling, he calls it Our Playtrix Reality, as these are teachings somewhat of how to live a bit closer to the divine realm and divine beings within what Kazaya has termed the playtrix that you live in which your souls get to play.
Power tricks, you said?
Playtrix, which is a play on words for the matrix that you get to play in.
Oh, with an X.
Yes.
so I wanted to ask Metatron if there's any chance, if any of us are ready, is there any way you could provide us with an activation or an upgrade today?
We can do that, although it's best to do that for individuals, as this type of activation is usually somewhat personal to the level of energy that an individual body and person not only can store and process, but also what they're ready for at any time. And so this is partly why these types of activations and healings are given within one-on-one sessions that Troy offers with us.
Well,
Although
Metatron is absolutely welcome to come on over and give me a personal upgrade anytime they want to. I'm here. I think Zane is too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had a couple of those, and boy, oh boy. Wow.
That is you mean the evil transformer?
Oh, that's Megatron.
Metatron will be in touch with each of you now that you have had this closer connection in this way, this conversation with us.
That would be lovely. Lovely. That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, I've had some upgrades where I was at a 10-day Vipassana retreat where I had my body went into a full vibration for 6, 7, 8 hours all night long. Like every cell in my body was bouncing against each other. Felt like a Sasquatch was in me. So that was great. 2012. No sleep.
We love to witness and be a part of many of these types of healings and activations to help humans achieve more of their optimum potential of their not only spiritual energy but also body's energy, as this is within the granted birthright of humans and beings within the firmament realm. Are there any further questions at this time?
Well, you have said, you have called the earth the rock, and you've used the word firmament. So there's the big question. We are you said the rock globe. Are we on is the earth a globe? Or are we on a flat earth with a firmament over it?
We see, yes, the planet that you're on as being a sphere, just the same as is the design for the rest of the suns that you see and the rest of the spherical planets orbiting each sun within this planetary realm. And the word firmament is used from our perspective to describe the entire, not only solar system, but in a way, galactic and intergalactic reality kind of matrix based on the what could be called Metatronic, but geometric and intelligent designs of the third dimensional material realm that creates these planets and material worlds to live on for spiritual beings to then inhabit bodies and learn chosen lessons. That is our explanation of how we see this galactic universe you are in, this galactic matrix. It has been a joy to be able to answer your questions through a human body in this fashion. For now, if there are no further questions at this time, we see it appropriate to, as usual, grant many blessings of miracles and peace upon you. Okay. So that's more messages from Metatron.
How do you feel, Troy? You feel like you need a nap?
Actually, no. I could go for a meal or a light meal soon, but
Yeah.
also a walk.
Yeah.
But after doing so many of these channelings every week of Seraphim and angels, I don't get fatigued by it anymore. I don't get tired. It's fairly comfortable, really.